A United Nations observer criticizes Australia for its handling of environmental hazards and climate-related issues. A United Nations investigator, Marcos Orellana, has strongly criticized Australia for its inadequate protection of its citizens and environment in the face of climate change, mining activities, pesticides, and other hazardous challenges. Orellana's findings, stemming from a nationwide tour, outline a significant number of shortcomings that Australia must address. These include the government's reluctance to halt the development of new fossil fuel initiatives, which pose a severe risk of transforming the Darwin region into what Orellana calls a sacrifice zone for climate change. Dr. Marcos Orellana, the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxic Substances and Human Rights, specifically highlighted several concerns during his visit to Australia, including the Middle Arm Industrial Hub's substantial government support of $1.5 billion, fracking activities in the Beetaloo Basin, and the Barossa offshore gas extraction project. In his preliminary observations presented on Friday, Dr. Orellana emphasized that it is not solely Australia's responsibility to reduce its fossil fuel consumption to curb greenhouse gas emissions within its borders. He also stressed the importance of ending the exploration and exploitation of new fossil fuel ventures that contribute to global climate change through fossil fuel combustion. After a 12-day journey across the country, where he visited contaminated sites and engaged with local communities, Dr. Orellana noted that many Australians feel unheard and unprotected from various harms, often driven by commercial interests. He highlighted a significant gap between the government's narrative and that of the communities, with claims of the state being influenced by mining, oil, gas, agrochemical, and corporate interests. Dr. Orellana pointed out that Australia's environmental protection framework primarily operates reactively and is considered subpar compared to international best practices. However, he suggested that this could be improved if the country were to legally establish the right to a healthy environment. Additionally, he raised concerns about the disparity in air quality protection standards compared to other OECD nations and cited instances, like Victoria's La Trobe Valley, where coal-fired power plants lacked adequate pollution controls for many years. Dr. Marcos Orellana pointed out that Australia has a historical track record of inadequately rehabilitating mines, including uranium mines, and criticized the mining companies for providing insufficient reparation bonds to address environmental damage. He strongly criticized Australia's widespread use of hazardous pesticides, highlighting the lack of public information disclosure and inadequate health effects monitoring. Dr. Orellana emphasized that Indigenous Australians, in particular, feel a profound disconnect with the government regarding toxic impacts. He cited the recent legal victory by traditional owners who successfully halted the construction of a nuclear waste dump on their land in South Australia as a significant lesson in Indigenous rights. Furthermore, he addressed the issue of racism in Australia, stating that it must be addressed and resolved. He noted that the National Radioactive Waste Management Act, while not overriding federal laws protecting cultural heritage, contains elements that are considered racist and supersede state-established cultural heritage protections. Uranium mining also posed toxic challenges to Indigenous and local communities, according to Dr. Orellana. He acknowledged some positive developments at the Ranger mine in the Northern Territory but highlighted a persistent pattern of rehabilitation failures in the industry. Dr. Orellana's visit to Australia was conducted at the invitation of the Australian government. His preliminary observations will serve as the foundation for a comprehensive report to be presented to the UN Human Rights Council in September of the following year, providing Australia with an opportunity to respond. In addition to these concerns, Dr. Orellana also raised issues related to draconian restrictions on the right to protest in certain Australian jurisdictions, environmental exemptions granted to industries, and lenient penalties for companies that violate their licenses. He mentioned that these issues are often treated as a routine expense in business operations, with the resulting toxic harm being borne by workers or nearby communities. Australia received recognition for its endorsement of a new global treaty addressing plastic pollution and its endeavours to transition toward a circular economy. AAP is in the process of seeking a response from the federal government on these matters.